Hi, Lisa Gifford here, and today we're going to be showing Leni's fan template. When you open up your package to the Leni's fan template, you'll see on the back side we've got full written detailed instructions on how to make the Leni's fan. Now, it's pretty easy. The supplies you're going to need is, of course, you're going to need the template, you're going to need some fabric. So in Leni's fan, the quilt here is showing a strata of different colors. So you're going from a light to a dark. You're needing about a half a yard of each of the fabrics, and I believe you need a total of 7 pieces. You cut them into 2.5-inch strips, and then you're going to sew the strips together. Today I'm showing you another take on that. Instead of just having 7 different colors, I did a light to dark, but I've added a white, or I did something a little sparkly in between. So you cut all your pieces. Now the instructions say about a half a yard, so you're cutting them all, and then you're going to be making your strip sets. And I recommend when you're sewing your strip sets together that you sew down one side or sew the other, or sew in groups of 2 and then sew the opposite side. And then I also found that if you take the time to press open your seam, this is one of those times that the seam assist would work very well with this project. But you're going to press open your seams, and then you're going to have your completed strip set of 7 pieces all sewed together. Then you're going to also get your background fabric, and you're going to cut squares. Now Martelli has a 9.5-inch square, or that would be perfect for this application. But you're going to cut squares 9.5 inches, and then you're going to cut them on the diagonal. So here's a quick hint for you to know. If you're going to be using a fabric that is a directional for your background fabric, just know that it's going to have a little bit of a shift to it, and I'll show you that in a little bit later in one of my one of the projects that I've made. But you're going to cut. It would be better if you find a fabric for your background that's an all-over print that doesn't show that there would be any shift, or a solid. That way, because it shifts a little bit when you're attaching it to the piece that you're cutting out with this piece right here. So once you get all of your pieces all cut, so I'm going to show you here. Here is my large piece that's all sewed together. You'll see on the template itself, there's actually a line that's been engraved in. Now you could highlight that line, or you could put a piece of tape there to kind of make it a little bit more to see through. And then after you've got your pieces sewn, I have found now you're going to be cutting out all of your strata pieces, and you're going to be doing it and turning in opposite directions. I don't think this is a project that you can stack up several of these at one time. You need to do them one at a time. So you're going to take the piece and see where it's got this line right here. You're going to line that up on the seam of your strip set as close as you can, but you want to be sure that your other end is also right there on the edge. So I found it was easier if I just get it to the edge, because I guess my seam allowance was a little bit big. So it was off by just a little bit. But I want to be sure that every one that I cut is exactly the same. So you're going to line it up on here. And then all you're going to be doing is just cutting that out. Now, I'm not sure how many pieces that you can get cut out of a full strip set. That depends if you use a full 44-inch wide fabric or not. But you're just cutting that out. And that is your piece. Now as you're going to the other side, you're going to take your template, and now you're going to set it on the opposite direction. So again, you're looking to line up that line as close as you can to that line, making sure you're not necessarily going to be lining it up against there, but you can get it as close as you can and I still recommend you trimming it, making sure you're not going off the edge on this edge. Line it up as close on this end, and then the same thing, you're going to cut out another. And you're just going to do this all the way down with the entire strip set. And what I had done as I was cutting them out, I just set them in the sets in the pile. So here's a bunch cut out with the blue on the large end. Here's a bunch where the blue, darker blue is on the narrow end. So these are the pieces that you're going to be cutting out of your strip set. Then when you cut your squares, your 9.5 inch squares, and I'm using just a grunge here. And I thought, you know, a grunge typically is not a very directional, and I've just got I got 4 layers here. And you're going to need a full block for every single piece. You're going to need 1 full block for every single one of these when you go to put your pieces together. So you're going to cut 9.5 inch pieces, or if you happen to have the 9.5 inch template, use that and cut your squares. And then you're going to cut diagonal to diagonal with another ruler. Here's some that I've already cut. Already cut diagonal to diagonal. So now you're dealing with a lot of bias. And if you can see, I got my grains going this way, and I've got my grains going this way. Now, I'm going to show you a couple projects that I had done earlier before we get to sewing. Why it was so important to choose a background fabric that doesn't have a directional pattern. So this one here, you can see it pretty good with this piece right here. Because you're going to be taking your piece that you cut out with the Leni's fan, and what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking this piece right here and you're going to be sewing it on. Well, what happens is if you have a fabric that has a definite pattern, it shifts just a little bit. Grunge is one of those fabrics that just has this all over look to it. But I can see this little bit of a shift. It's because it gets narrow and it gets wide here, even though I sewed it right there on the edge. So it's going to show that little bit of that shifting here. So use a solid or use an all over pattern that doesn't really show that there's that kind of a movement. But here's just a couple of projects that I had done, showing you where this is where I put the narrows on the middle and then worked out. This is here where I went from the wide and went out. So this is to me like a little table topper that you can make. So I just whipped these up real quick. Didn't take hardly any time. This will be a great gift. So instead of always making a quilt with something, make something small that you can make with it. Now here is the big one that Miss Leni had done. And this one here, she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the squares going up, and probably believe at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares. But this makes, to me, this is a full block right here. But actually, we're only making 1 leg at a time. So we're going to go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you how to make a single leg with 2 pieces, a square that you cut in half, and then one of the stratas. All right, so I folded this one right sides together and I marked my points. And I did it like this, folded right sides together, gave it a crease or a pinch on each side, open it back up, and if you need to, you can take a pencil and you can just sort of mark that fold spot. Now the second one, I kind of want that crease to kind of nest down into that fold, so I'm going to take my square. Remember, it was a full square that I had cut on the diagonal. So I'm going to take one of those pieces. If I folded this one right sides together, this one I'm going to fold wrong sides together. I'm going to match up my point right here. Do not stretch it because this is a big bias right here. And you're just going to give it a pinch to create that little bit of a crease right there. And then when I open it up, I can take that little crease and I'm going to rest it right there on that little mark. So there's my center. And if you want, you can go ahead and grab a pin and go ahead and pin that center right there. It's holding it in place. Then you're just going to go ahead and line up your fabric all the way to the edge, and it's going to be overlapping quite a bit. See how it overlaps? Don't worry about that. You're going to be squaring it up and trimming it off in a little bit anyway. But right now we want to be sure we get it centered. So I'm just going to go ahead and smooth it out. Now you could sew either direction you want. You could have the strata on top, or you could have the strata on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and sew with my strata on the bottom. I pressed the seams open on this project. Like I said earlier, I found it so much easier and it lays so much flatter by doing that. And now I'm just going to take it to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew it at 1/4 of an inch with a pretty tight stitch. And then I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit of a press back just to get it out of my way, because I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to take my piece, my long flat piece here. I'm going to fold it wrong sides together, give it a pinch so that I know where my center is, right there. And here's my center that I've marked earlier. And now I'm going to open it up, place it right sides together, and line it up right there on that mark. Grab a pin and pin it there. You can pin it on all three, on each end if you want, but I just pin it there. And then I just smooth it out to the edge. And now I'm going to go ahead and place it under there and sew again 1/4 of an inch all the way down. So now I've got it both sides done. Give it a little bit of finger press, and then I'm just going to go over and we're going to take it to the iron and get this all ironed out nice and flat. Now we got to square up this block, and you think, how do we get this to square? Well, this needs to be squared up to 10 inches. So from this point here to this point right here, that's 10 inches. So what I'm doing, I mean, you could go ahead with the ruler and you can cut each side so that it's 10 inches all the way around, or, you know, straight all the way around. But I got the Martelli 10-inch template, and what I am doing is I am taking this section right here and I'm setting it on this corner here. And then I'm going to have this piece, the opposite side, resting onto this section here. And it will fit right there on my 10-inch square. So I'm not really paying attention to the sides so much as I am getting those edges right there on the edge here. And it's right here on the edge here. It just fits right in there. And now all of this is going to be trimmed off. And there we go. Our perfect little 10-inch block all ready to go to be put together into pieces. So when it's all trimmed up and you've got all those wonky sides trimmed off, you don't notice that movement as much. So, and then when you go to put it together in a project, it's even more unnoticeable. Okay, so here are 4 of them again laid out to make this little larger blocks. You got your single blocks, 4 together. The blocks again are 10 inches unfinished. So putting 4 of them together gives you a square that's 19.5 inches. And then with this little piece right here, I just added a 1.5 inch border and then a 3-inch border. And so it made a nice little piece for a table topper. So you know, just gotta quilt it and put a binding on it and be good to go. And then again, this is showing you the layout of how everything fit into a larger quilt. This here is that block that we had just made. And so it's showing you how it would look in the single block on the large quilt. And again, I just took the opposite one of the one on the tables where it's wide in the middle and going out, because whether you do wide in the middle or if you do the skinny one in the middle, you know, it's going to have whatever look you want it to have. So again, this is one of those projects that's super, super easy to do, very fast, because you're just sitting there doing a lot of repetition of sewing your strips together. This is Leni's fan made by Miss Leni Cable here in Pensacola, Florida. So we are so glad that she came up with this. You know, you can add a couple of the other templates to it, like the 10-inch square or the 9.5 inch square, but it's not really required. But be sure to go to Martelli Notions and pick this up. Super fast, easy, great project. It looks a lot harder than what it actually is. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at quiltingwithlisa@gmail.com. Be sure to check us out at martellinotions.com. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.